Good morning, Angela from the Clerk's Department. We are doing a sound check presenter's laptop, sound check presenter's laptop, sound check clerk's laptop, sound check clerk's laptop. Thank you. Good morning, Hamilton Utilities Corporation, sound check. We're going to sound check on the presenter's laptop, and now we're sound checking on the clerk's laptop, sound check on the clerk's laptop. Thank you.
Up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and you are live, Mr. Mayor.
Great, thank you, and welcome back to our Hamilton Utilities Corporation Shareholder Annual General Meeting this morning. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Members of the public are advised that our meetings are webcast live and temporarily archived on our City of Hamilton website, as well as a reminder to keep all of the electronic devices to be switched to a non-audible function during our meeting. I am not going to do a roll call, but I will note that Councillor Whitehead and Councillor Nan will not be present today, and I anticipate all other members of council will be here to fulfill quorum, and quorum is in the room as I understand it, Madam Clerk.
Yes, that's correct.
Great, thank you. Can I turn to the agenda? The agenda does have a couple of changes. Madam Clerk, do you want to outline those, please?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. We have two added presentations. The first one is 5.1, Elektra Inc. Corporation, and the second one is respecting the Hamilton Utilities Corporation. As well, added resolutions of the shareholder, 6.2 and 6.3 are the Hamilton Utilities Corporation audited consolidated financial statements, year ended December 31st, 2020, and the Elektra audited consolidated financial statements as well, year ended December 31st, 2020, and the shareholder report.
Thank you. So on the agenda as amended, can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please? Councillor Pearson, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Danko. Thank you. Any comments or questions? If not, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor then. Councillor Collins is on the chat. Is approved. Got to put up my chat. There we go.
I don't see Councillor Marula yet.
All votes are in.
I'm just missing a couple. I'm just trying to see if they're here yet. That vote carries 9-0.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Declarations of interest. Anyone have a declaration of interest as related to this agenda or any agenda item? Thank you. Not seeing any. We'll move on to the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting, October the 13th, 2020. Can I have a motion to move those minutes? Moved by Councillor Vanderbeek, seconded by Councillor Clark. Any comments or questions on the minutes? Seeing none. Approve. Electronically, thank you.
Vote carries, Mr. Mayor, 9-0.
Great, thank you very much. We're going to turn to presentations. First up is the presentation from Elektra, and Brian Bentz, President and CEO of the Elektra board, is here. And I'm sure, Brian, you will introduce the guests there with you as well. So I'll leave that with you, or I can do it on your behalf, whatever you prefer.
I can do that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. And good morning, everyone. Here to present the results of operations and financial performance of Elektra for 2020. 2020 was certainly a year like no other with respect to the impact that the pandemic had on society at large and the economy. And Elektra was no exception. Our company had been monitoring and been in preparation for the potential impacts of the pandemic since early January of last year, stocking PPE, monitoring public health agencies' advisories and recommendations, and assembling our emergency preparedness plan. And in March 23rd, 2020, we established emergency operations and quickly mobilized staff to begin to work from home. Throughout the pandemic, our first priority was, and always will be, the health, safety, and wellness of our employees, and in turn, the safety of the public, as well as supporting our customers and the communities we serve through a difficult time. During 2020, we implemented a policy to not disconnect any residential customer during the year. We waived late payment charges for customers from March to August. We directed and assisted customers where possible to access government support programs like the COVID Emergency Assistance Program and the Low Income Energy Assistance Program. We advised our call center staff to be understanding, accommodating with respect to establishing payment arrangements with customers who were in arrears. And due to the fact that we had been proactive on procuring PPE in January and February, we were able to donate N95 masks to frontline healthcare workers during the second quarter of last year at a time when those supplies were very much needed. We also knew that given the fact that many of our customers were working from home and had children at home, learning remotely and virtually, became increasingly important to maintain reliability and safety of and supply of the electrical system. And to that end, we mobilized storm response, and we ensured that our control rooms continued to operate 24/7, all while adhering to established COVID protocols. And I'm pleased to report that our reliability indices exceeded target for the year 2000, despite the challenges presented by COVID. From a financial results point of view, you'll hear from our Chief Financial Officer, John Basilio, in a moment. But certainly the financial results were impacted by COVID. But notwithstanding the impacts of COVID related to credit losses, lower distribution revenue, and labor absorption from capital to operating, Elektra had strong financial performance during the year, which resulted in dividends accruing to Hamilton Utilities Corporation. And John will speak to that in a moment. If I could move to the table of contents. Have our outline of their presentation here today. As I mentioned, John will speak to the year-end financial performance, the synergies that have been achieved by Elektra since its inception in January of 2017 over the last 4 years, and also a presentation with respect to the dividends paid over that period. Mike Matthews, who is our Senior Vice President of Network Services, will talk about our capital expenditures during the year, as well as the go-forward investments in the City of Hamilton's electrical power system that we are planning over the course of 2021. Blair Peberty is our Vice President of Government Relations. We'll talk about the community giving and community programs that we had within the city during the year, and I'll close by speaking to some of our recognition and rewards that the organization received in 2020. So with that, turn it over to John Basilio to outline the financial performance. John?
Thanks, Brian, and good morning, everyone. So I think we described the financial performance for Elektra as certainly exceptional and very extraordinary times. The year was very much a roller coaster. And despite the COVID impacts that Brian spoke to, we were approximately $9 million short on our income target of about $133 million, delivering just under $124 million. Sorry, if we could turn to slide 5, please. Thank you. And as Brian said, when we started out in the first quarter, we reported to shareholders at that time that we thought we'd be about $30 million short on the year as a result of lower than expected revenues, lower loads. As Brian said, our capital crews largely being unproductive at the outset of COVID, and credit losses. We were concerned about our customers' ability to pay. But through the year, we saw improvement. The economy started to open up. Crews went back to work at the start of June. And this improved the outlook, but the deterioration of arrears was more severe than thought. And so overall, the impact of COVID between revenue credit losses and some unproductive labor had an adverse impact of about $31 million on net income. But that notwithstanding, our competitive businesses performed very well, overperforming above budget. And other items such as property dispositions, regulatory recoveries, and continued conservation performance delivered about $16 million of unbudgeted income in the year. And so overall, we were able to narrow that COVID impact to about $9 million, which had a very modest impact on dividends overall and for the city of Hamilton relative to the budget. If we could move 2 slides forward, please. I'll ask Mike Matthews to come back to the a moment. So we reported synergies each year, and this really was the thrust or the rationale underlying the merger business case. And I think in that regard, the merger has been an overwhelming success. And you can see here that in this chart that we've actually overperformed on synergy delivery in each year. And if you look at the last 2 data points in this slide to the right, the difference between the 122 and the 75 is $47 million of sustained synergies since the merger. And our target was $52.5 million run rate that we didn't expect to achieve in 2020, sort of a final year of some residual transition, but expect to achieve that, to actually hit that run rate in 2020. So overall, in the interim, we've overachieved about $21 million, but certainly expect to achieve that run rate moving forward. So good news on the synergies and the underlying rationale for the merger business case. We could move to the next slide, please. So despite that overachievement, as you can see this year, for the first 4 years of the merger, we're reporting being about $10 million of dividends lower than what we estimated in the business case. When we reported to you last year, we were $10 million overachieved. And a lot of that was largely due to the favorable synergy gap. But we've also reported that we're facing some headwinds. And those are the drivers for Strategy 2.0, which we've visited with our shareholders in regard to. We've got headwinds related to very difficult to recover regulatory costs, essentially, in our view, promises broken on recoveries for additional capital that we would incur in the 10-year period post-merger, as well as some government policy changes, the cancellation of the Conservation First framework, which allowed Elektra to deliver conservation programs to customers and earn incentives, and the addition of some unforeseen regulatory costs at the outset of the merger, such as monthly billing versus we used to largely bill bi-monthly. And so those headwinds have created some revenue erosion, some additional costs, and so we're a little under on the merger business case. But that notwithstanding, the merger has provided dividends of about $72 million compared to what we call the status quo, and that is, had the entities not merged in the first place. And we think that's quite material for our shareholders, and we expect those trends to continue, particularly as we start to realize on the growth strategy and Strategy 2.0. So with that, if we could move back to slide 6, I believe, and I'd ask Mike Matthews if he would speak to the capital program for 2020. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, John. So, just following on with what both John and Brian spoke about, we did, as a result of COVID, we really had to ramp down our capital program through the months of March, April, and May. And then we started to ramp back up in June. And we really put a concerted effort in working with both our internal capital crews and our external contractors to really drive to the finish line over the last half of the year in achieving our overall capital program. So despite really losing 3 months of productivity, we did really well in achieving a capital expenditure of $281 million on a budget of $302 million. So we were $21 million under budget, but I think considering the circumstances, we were able to react very responsibly in the latter half of the year. And that's really a testament to our contractors and our field crews who were able to adjust, to really put in that extra effort and work safely under the conditions that were imposed under COVID. We were low in a couple of projects in the general plant area. Our Consolidated Operations Center in Brampton at Kennedy Road, construction was delayed in that area and has been deferred. We also had some Guelph transition projects that, due to COVID, were difficult to implement, and so we had some underspending in that area. And we also saw slowdowns and deferral in transit projects and road widening projects driven by the municipalities. But what we were able to do is take that opportunity to really shift and invest in system renewal, which is replacing assets, additional aging assets, which on our system right now, we do have a challenge with aging cable. And so we were able to accelerate some of those programs to the tune of $15 million. So a good adjustment and a good achievement on the capital program by year end. If we move to slide 10, I'll provide an update on some of the capital spending that we plan to do in the Hamilton area over the next 5 years. As you can see from the slide, our annual capital budget is around $250 million across all service territories. And in the Hamilton area alone, over the next 5 years, we plan to invest over $140 million in the distribution system. As the slide says here, $30 million over the next 5 years to replace and rehabilitate poor condition underground cable. It's actually $40 million. As I said, underground cable, aging cable is a big challenge for us and our leading cause of outages across all service territories. So a large amount of our expenditures are in replacing aging cables, and 40 million of that in Hamilton. We also have an extensive list of projects for the overhead system, $22 million in voltage conversion projects from low 4 kV distribution system to a higher voltage 13.8 kV. $14 million in pole replacements and removal of joint use poles. $4 million in underground vault cover replacements. $4 million in transformer replacements. $14 million in switch replacements and distribution automation, and then $5 million to update and enhance our substation equipment and monitoring. Over the last couple of years, we have had some reliability challenges in Hamilton, specifically water down and Ward 1 areas. I can say in Ward 1, we have completed the construction of a third feeder to water down, and that provides us with additional flexibility in order to restore power should we have an outage in the area. The feeder is now operational, and it also includes several automated devices that allows our system control room to do that switching automatically, as opposed to waiting for crews to arrive on the scene to do the switching. So that should shorten the length of outages as well. And we also plan to have additional automation added to the 3 feeders that service water down by the end of 2021. In the Ward 1 area, we have had some concerns raised by residents, and we have had some reliability issues in that area. We have a lot of plans in place to address the distribution system, but also, as you know, and you may have known, Hydro One, working alongside of us, has rehabilitated and made upgrades to the Newton transformer station. Unfortunately, during the weekend when we were doing that work, we did experience some outages, unfortunately. But you know that there's been a $37 million investment into that station, which includes replacing 2 of the large power transformers and replacing 240 insulators in the yard, which should help with some outages that we were having related to Newton TS. We also installed extra fencing and animal guards because we were having, a number of animal-related outages impacting the area. So good investment in Newton TS. And then over the next 3 years, we, Elektra, plan to invest an additional $5.5 million into the Ward 1 area to rebuild main feeders, add feeder automation, and update the underground infrastructure. So that's my update on the capital plan and the capital plans going forward for the city of Hamilton. So I'll pass it back to you, Brian.
Thanks, Mike. And now Blair will speak to some of the community giving that was accelerated and repurposed in 2020, especially to support communities during COVID. So Blair, would you speak to that, please?
Thank you, Brian, and good morning, everyone. Yes, continuing on with the investments in community discussion, our community support budget is in the $1 million a year range. And we, in 2020, when the pandemic hit, we redirected a lot of that funding into local COVID relief agencies and causes. And we've carried that focus on in 2021 through our Elektra Cares community support program. And just this, if we could go to the next slide, please. Yes, and just on that, and at a high level, before I get into some of the detail, in 2021, we are focusing in on pandemic relief, as I mentioned. Anti-racism as well is obviously an issue that all of us are concerned and focusing on. And so we're working in concert with our municipalities to determine organizations in those communities that are working in the anti-racism area, and we are pledging support down to that level as well. Of interest, we've recently agreed on and launched a scholarship program with the Directors College at McMaster to Groot. That will be announced later this summer by McMaster and Elektra that will provide a scholarship for BIPOC candidates who are living in the Elektra service territory to cover the cost of their tuition in the Directors College. So that would be one candidate per year, and we would pick up the tuition for that person. That we expect the first intake to begin in the January 2022, and we'll start promoting that program with McMaster later this summer. And then we spoke to our own employees. We've surveyed them to find out which organizations that they would like the company to invest in. And as a result of that, we've directed funds to approximately 80 organizations that local organizations that our employees recommended. Next slide, please. Yeah, getting a little bit more granular, about 82,000 has been committed into Hamilton over the last 12 months and planned for 2021 as well. Some of the highlights here that are very important to us and we have great relationships with is the Food for Kids Hamilton Weekends. And childhood hunger and education and health is one of the key areas that we are focusing on. It's interesting, it did arise out of the pandemic as a real need as we talk to the social service agencies. So we are dedicating money into that area. YWCA Hamilton Walk, we committed 5,000, but our employees who take part in that for the second year in a row won the fundraising team of the year for the YWCA Hamilton Walk. So it's one that we're very proud of and work closely with. And then 75,000 over the last 4 years to Outward Bound, which is providing outdoor education experiences for youth in the Hamilton area. And continuing to support a long-term relationship with Second Harvest Food Rescue in Hamilton. And again, you can see this theme of food support and food need that has arisen and that Elektra is responding to. Just quickly, as an aside, we are also investing a lot of money in local food banks through our e-billing campaigns, where we're asking customers to transition from paper billing to paperless billing. And as an incentive, we did donate money to the food banks, Central Food Bank in Ontario. So $200,000 last year went to them that they distributed across the territory, including into the Hamilton area. And this year we're carrying on that program with a donation of $50,000 to the Frontline Fund as part of our e-billing promotion. And the Frontline Fund supports doctors and nurses who are on shift, who are coming off shift in these COVID wards by providing them with hotel rooms if they need them to stay overnight, that type of thing. So we're very proud of that. And those campaigns are going very well and being really well responded to by our customer base. And then the next slide, please. Yes, just to finish our community update, again, the Ally newsletter that comes to all of our municipal partners quarterly from Brian, and the most recent one would have gone out in May. And then our customer newsletters and customer outreach, primarily electronic messaging into our customer base, that we're building that database. Again, that goes quarterly. And that is being very well received and is a very valuable communications tool to them, specifically on this e-billing campaign, for example, where the response from those newsletters and the advertising we're doing around that has been very strong. So with that, I'll turn it back to Brian.
Thanks, Blair. I'd like to close by outlining some of the recognition and awards that Elektra received in 2020. We can move to the slide. Starting with the Corporate Knights Award. This is given to or selected from a group of companies across Canada, Fortune 500 companies with revenues in excess of $1 billion. And they're assessed across a number of metrics, including board diversity, sustainability, and workplace safety. And Elektra made the top 50 and in fact was number 3 in Canada in that selection. We also won the Smart Energy Alliance, Smart Energy Power Alliance Award, first ever Canadian utility to receive that award. That's a US-based organization looking at net zero carbon grid by 2050. And Elektra received that award for its innovation at its Green Energy and Technology Center on initiatives like our work with respect to e-mobility, Elektra at Work, Elektra at Home, and our microgrid initiatives. Also, one of our young leaders received an award as a 30 under 30 for the Corporate Knights and received the EDA Electricity Distributors Association Award for environmental excellence. The organization had a reduction of 1,500 tons of GHG since 2016, which is a 15% decrease over that period. Next slide. We also were fortunate to be the first ever recipient of the Sustainability Leadership Award presented by Sustainable Hamilton Burlington. Blair mentioned the Walk a Mile in Her Shoes and top fundraiser there. The work that we've done with Conestoga College was recognized, as well as Plug and Drive for the work that we're doing with respect to advancing e-mobility in the power sector in Ontario. Next slide, please. We anticipate that in 2021, once again, be on the top 50 with respect to the Corporate Knights Best 50 Corporate Citizens. Maybe we'll be number 1 this year. That would be nice. Won an award from Halton Hamilton United Way, Inspiring Local Love Award for the contributions in support of COVID relief programs through the local United Way chapters. Award for website design. And finally, we were recognized again by the EDA for our communications, employee communications during COVID-19. So next slide. All in all, we think that we've had a successful year under trying circumstances. Very proud of the way the organization responded to the challenges with respect to COVID, looking after each other and that allowing them to look after our customers and our communities during this time. As John mentioned, the financial performance, notwithstanding the fact we had about a $30 million impact from COVID on our operations, and a budgeted net income of $132 million, so a $30 million impact, we still came in at $123 million in net income. So the organization performed well from a financial perspective and a reliability perspective. Pleased with the performance. Thank the board of Elektra and Hamilton Utilities Corporation for working with us over the course of this year, and look forward to working with all of them in the future. The only other thing I would add here, Mr. Mayor, is we do have Sean Donnelly, our director, present, and I would just ask him if he had any comments or observations before we turn it back to you. So, Sean.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, Sean.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Mayor. Thank you, Brian. No, I just want to extend my comments as the director. I think both Mayor Fred and I would concur that operating through the pandemic, Elektra has been exemplary in all the communities in which they operate, notwithstanding Hamilton themselves. So well done for them, very challenging year, and they kept their employees safe. So my hat's off to the Elektra management team. Thanks, Mayor.
Great, thank you, Sean, and thank you, Brian and John and Mike Matthews and Blair for your presentations, and the many thank yous in multiple languages is very nice. If you could take your presentation down so I can see the members on the screen, that would be great. And I would concur with Sean. From a board perspective, this is an exceptionally well-run company that is receiving appropriate accolades for their efficiency and their good corporate structure, and we have great board members, and I think the return on investment based on the merge and everything that was promised has been delivered significantly. So I think it's been a great opportunity to not only grow the dividend, but to work on the capital infrastructure, which is as Mike Matthews pointed out, was a challenge for all the other previous utilities, and certainly is a challenge with Elektra, and it's something that is a very key focus on ensuring that we continue to improve and make capital investments in the infrastructure that's going to be so important in terms of delivery of the electricity. So very great board and great leadership team, and a great presentation. I thank you for that. I'm going to turn to Councillor Pearson for questions, and then at the appropriate time, we'll take a motion to receive the presentation, and then there are some other motions that we need to approve relative to audit and everything else. Councillor Pearson, questions?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, gentlemen, all of you. The presentation was excellent. I just want to touch on Mike Matthews' presentation information with regards to upgrades and the amount of money that's being spent over the next number of years. And I can attest that in Ward 10 currently, there is infrastructure work going on where they're bringing the underground services, the boxes that are underground in a whole neighborhood, and bringing them up to surface level units, which will make it much more efficient and safe, and I appreciate that. My question, you mentioned about substation in Ward 1, and I believe it is a substation issue at Lake Avenue. I know a lot of money is required to do upgrades there, but is there any update that you can assist me with as far as the Lake Avenue substation and the ongoing concerns that I get with service in the Winona area, especially where the built-up development is going on, that I get constant complaints, especially when there are storm events?
Thank you.
Yes,
go ahead, Mike.
Thanks, through you, Mr. Mayor. I can't speak specifically. I could get information on the Lake transformer station. We do, as I mentioned, have $5 million in station investment, so that may very well be part of that. I know that we do have challenges where we do in the Hamilton area have long feeders supplying areas such as Winona. We have the same issues in Ancaster as we do in Waterdown. So we do have plans to invest in those feeders, bringing additional circuits and bringing feeder automation, just increasing the redundancy to the areas so that when we do have high windy days, which thankfully this year we haven't had too many, so the system, as you can, is responding well this year. But we are reinforcing the system so that we can minimize those events. So a lot of projects that are on the books, and I can provide you with more details with respect to your area afterward.
I truly thank you for that, Mike, and I appreciate any information. I would love to have communication back and forth of what's going on. The only thing I've received with regards to Winona is the ongoing concerns that the residents are being told when they call that there's animals that have caused the power outages. And I understand Hydro is trying to put something on the lines to prevent that. So I would certainly appreciate both with regards to the Winona upgrades and the Lake Avenue upgrades, whatever you have. So you have my email available, maria.pearson@hamilton.ca. I'd appreciate any input and communication on this and working together. Thank you.
We'll make sure that the email is available to them and that you get the information directly.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Any other questions of Elektra Board? Councillor Ferguson?
Yeah, thank you.
Your audio is sketchy again, unfortunately. So maybe turn your video off again, Councillor. Thank you.
Do we have any update, or have we given up on acquiring the Hydro One assets in the rest of Hamilton?
Thank you, Brian.
So we certainly understand how important that is to the city in terms of the 33,000 customers that are Hamilton residents that are fed by Hydro One. I think I reported last time that I had been in discussions with the CEO. We have been in discussions with someone you're all familiar with, MPP Skelly, with respect to the initiative of a potential, say, swap of service area. Hydro One is not interested in us purchasing the service area without obtaining service area themselves. They're in effectively in growth mode, or at least retaining the customer base that they have now. They recently acquired Aurelia and Peterborough. We expect that as COVID eases, we'll reinitiate those discussions with Hydro One. There are challenges associated with it, but I think they're manageable. Some of them relate to pegging a value, an enterprise value of the assets that Hydro One would in effect trade with us. There's different valuation methods of how we peg a price on that with respect to the growth rate, the value of the assets, the capital invested required to do that. There are differences with respect to rates. The rates are up to 10-15% higher in the Hydro One service area versus the Elektra service area. Reliability levels are different. One outage per year on average of 1 hour. With the Elektra service area, it's higher and longer in the Hydro One service area. We would look to normalize that over time. So those issues need to be discussed and resolved. There's also tax implications with respect to the transfer. This is something that I think makes strategic sense for us in terms of the potential synergies and just the logical integration of the Hamilton service area into our service area, and the logical integration of embedded service areas we have in other parts, mostly in central Ontario, that Elektra has that would fit, we think, quite neatly into the Hydro One service area. So we will continue to pursue this, and it is our intent to complete this transaction, but we need to work with Hydro One, the province, and government, local government, provincial government to make this happen.
Okay, because you said the two reasons why I'd like to, well, the numbers would like to see Elektra take it over. Number one, because Hydro One and Elektra goes right down the middle of a street, and a number of locations. In I represent Ancaster, Ward 12, which has a large rural component also, but the service levels stink and the price is higher than what the Elektra customers are paying on the other side of the street. But John Pasilio is probably sick of me keep bringing this up because I've been doing it now for 20 years. And I keep getting the same answers. So my question is, do we give up? Do I move on to something else? Or do we move on to something else?
No, I wouldn't give up on this. This is something we want to continue to pursue. We think it makes sense. COVID has delayed it somewhat. We have had conversations, but no, maybe 21 years might be the final year. So we'll see.
Okay, I'll keep asking the same question then next year. Thank you.
Just so you're aware, it's also raised by me and others at the board level. It's an ongoing topic of conversation. So there's no lack of attention to the matter. It's a matter of what does the arrangement look like, and so there's certainly an absolute desire and willingness on the part of Elektra board and Elektra staff, and we will continue to pursue that. I think it makes imminent sense to rationalize and organize the utility distribution in a much better way than it is right now, and certainly having Hydro One fold into Elektra as a one unified Hamilton service area, it makes all kinds of sense. So you don't have to worry about it being raised. It will be raised, but I'm glad you're raising it at our annual general meeting. Any other questions of staff on the presentation?
Wait, Mr. Mayor, just one follow-up question to your comment, and thank you for that. But last year I felt a sense of optimism because you talked about a swap with some utilities that are smaller up in the rural areas around the Collingwood area. And is that still on the table, or is that behind us now?
Okay, right.
That would be the basis of the transaction. So it would have to be a swap. It would not be a purchase. Hydro One, we have to have two. This is a commercial transaction where two parties have to agree on the terms. Hydro One does not want to sell its assets to us directly without obtaining a service area in return. So we have about 29,000 customers in those embedded areas in central Ontario. There's 33,000 customers that they serve in Hamilton. So it's pretty close. There probably have to be a cash transaction to once we peg the values. That would be the basis of the deal. So, we're still hopeful that we can get there.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, can I have a motion to receive the presentation? Moved by Councillor Ferguson, seconded by Councillor Vanderbeek. Thank you. All in favor? Here we go. The vote is up.
Mr. Mayor, I think for some reason the clerks have disconnected me, so I'll give you a thumbs up.
Okay, thank you.
And if Stephanie could reconnect me, that'd be great.
Thumbs up from Councillor Jackson as well. Anyone else need to do a manual vote? Everyone else seems to be okay. Thank you.
Yes. Just going to close the vote, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And then we'll turn to...
Vote carries 8-0. Mr. Mayor, we have an issue because it only carries 8-0. So either somebody's missing or we have lost quorum. So I'm going to close that vote.
Chad is approving in the chat.
Yeah, but I thought I took him. I had Councillor Collins. Councillor Jackson, I'm sorry it was you that I was missing your thumbs up. So it does carry 9-0, and I will change that.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation. We have the audited statement to approve a little later on after the HUC presentation. So bear with for a little bit, and we'll get back to you in terms of those approvals as well. Thank you all. I'm going to turn it over now to the next presentation, which is the Hamilton Utilities Corporation Audited Consolidated Financial Statement. No, it's not. It is the HUC presentation, and turn it back over to Lori Tugman and Jeff Cowan on the Hamilton Utility Corp presentation. Gentlemen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We will be fairly quick on this part. I just wanted to let everyone know that we have 5 board members present today. Greg McManus, Krista Wessel, Julia Camula, Councillor Marula, and myself. Hamilton Utilities Corporation, of course, is the entity that was created, well, it was reorganized such that it only holds the investment in Elektra, which is just over 17%. There are no employees within the structure of Hamilton Utilities Corporation. It is being administered by the employees of Hamilton Enterprises Holding Corporation. So the only activity that it has is the management of the investment in Elektra. With that, I would turn it back over to you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So are there any questions in terms of the HUC deck and presentation that I'm sure you've all had? I'm not seeing any. So I'm just going to go for approval of receiving the presentation first off. So a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Jackson, seconded by Councillor Pearson. Thank you. All in favor of receipt of their presentation? Again, not dramatically different than the presentation we had earlier this morning. And then we can turn to some shareholder resolutions.
Councillor Vanderbeek, are you able to vote?
See Councillor Collins in the chat approving as well.
That does carry, Mr. Mayor, 9-0.
Okay, thank you. So we have shareholder resolution item 6.1, appointment and remuneration auditor for Utilities Corporation. Are there any comments or questions on the item itself? And if not, do we have a mover and a seconder to approve? Moved by Pearson, seconded by Jackson. Thank you. Any comments or questions? Not seeing anything on the vote then. It's up. All in favor? Any opposed?
That carries, Mr. Mayor, 9-0.
Thank you. And item 6.2 is the financial audited statements for HUC and the year ending December 31st, 2020. You've had them before you. Can I have a mover and a seconder on the financial statements? Moved by Ferguson, seconded by Pearson. Thank you. Any comments or questions? Not seeing any, so we're going to go to item approval. Vote is up.
That carries 9-0, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And we're at item 6.3, which is the Elektra Inc. Audit Consolidated Financial Statements year ended December 31st. Shareholder report. Again, a mover and a seconder to put it on the floor. Moved by Jackson, seconded by Danko. Councillor Danko, apologies. Any comments or questions? Being none, all in favor of that?
That carries, Mr. Mayor, 9-0.
Thank you. Now we have 2 items of appointees to the various boards, HUC and Elektra. If there are no issues or comments around the appointees, then we can deal with them out of camera. Are there any questions on either one of those resolutions? If not, I will take a motion to approve item 10.1, continuation of Director of the Hamilton Utilities Corporation, moved by Ferguson, seconded by Jackson. Thank you. For questions on it? All. Thank you.
Councillor Clark, are you able to vote? That carries, Mr. Mayor, 9-0.
Thank you. And similarly, item 10.2, contractors of the Elektra Inc. Corporation Board. A mover and a seconder on it. Councillor Ferguson, seconded by Councillor J.P. Danko. Any comments or questions? All in favor? Any opposed? And there are no further items. Once
That carries, Mr. Mayor.
Madam Clerk, thank all of our utility representatives for being here today. You know what? We have a great, by and large, great service in our whole service area by virtue of Huck and Elektra. And you know, as to the Hydro One issue, I can assure that that's a constant topic of conversation. And I, as well as I'm sure many of you, are eager to have Hamilton consistently under one umbrella through Elektra, and that is something we'll continue to work on. So we'll bring that back, hopefully at the appropriate time, with something that resembles some unification in that process. Councillor Wilson, I saw your hand.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just was going to raise it under general business. If I could please intrude on this by asking a question of the representatives. Who do we engage with on matters of potential community partnerships and initiatives? I could have a name, please.
For Elektra, that'd be Blair Hedeby. I can get you the contact information for him directly.
Thank you.
In terms of the community commitments that we've made, and you know, significant investments have been made consistent with what Huck did previously. So their ongoing work is reported through our governance committee, and very keen on ensuring that Hamilton gets its fair share of resources to help support community initiatives. So I will make sure you get the name and contact number.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? If not, I will take a motion to adjourn with thanks to all of our participants. Moved by Councillor, seconded by Councillor Vanderbeek. All in favor electronically before we go. And again, with thanks to all of the staff and board members that have attended the meetings, and wish you continued great work in our community. Thank you. And once we get the we're good to go.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, that did carry. My microphone was at the top of my head.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.